The text that destroyed my perfect marriage. My wife's phone buzzed at 3:17 a.m. with a message that shattered everything I believed about our 4-year marriage. Phase 3 tomorrow. Once the restraining order goes through, he'll be out and we can sell everything. Can't wait to finally be free of this pathetic loser. But what I discovered in the next 72 hours wasn't just about another man. It was about an elaborate conspiracy that had been destroying my life piece by piece. And I was about to lose everything I'd worked for unless I acted fast. If you're into honest stories about relationships, trust, and betrayal, hit that follow button. You won't want to miss the next one. I'd always been a heavy sleeper, but lately something had been keeping me awake. Maybe it was the way my wife had started keeping her phone face down during dinner, or how she'd developed a sudden need for girls' nights that lasted until 2 a.m. Maybe it was the way she'd look at me sometimes, like she was calculating something I couldn't understand. That Tuesday night in November, I was lying in bed listening to the rain against our bedroom window when her phone lit up on the nightstand. The blue glow cut through the darkness, and I saw her stir slightly but not wake up. The phone buzzed again, then again. 3 messages in rapid succession at 3:17 a.m. I'd never been the type of husband to check his wife's phone. In 4 years of marriage, the thought had never seriously crossed my mind. Trust was the foundation of everything we'd built together. Our home, our future plans, our shared dreams of starting a family next year. But something about those late-night messages felt wrong in my gut. They'd been happening for weeks now, always when she thought I was asleep. Always followed by her slipping quietly to the bathroom with her phone, having whispered conversations she claimed were work emergencies or family drama. My hand trembled as I reached for her device. The screen showed 3 notifications from a contact saved as Tony's Pizza, which was strange because we'd never ordered from any place called Tony's Pizza. The preview text visible on the lock screen made my blood freeze in my veins. Phase 3 tomorrow. Once the restraining order goes through, he'll be out and we can sell everything. Restraining order? Sell everything? What the hell was Phase 3? I knew her passcode. She'd never hidden it from me. Our wedding date, 0847, typed in 1,000 times while she paid bills or showed me funny videos. My fingers shook as I entered those 4 numbers, and suddenly I had access to conversations that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. The message thread with Tony's Pizza went back 8 months. 8 months of planning, scheming, and systematically setting up my destruction. The person on the other end wasn't Tony, and they definitely weren't selling pizza. The contact photo showed a woman with short blonde hair and cold eyes, someone I'd never seen before, but who apparently knew everything about my daily routine, my work schedule, my bank accounts, and my deepest personal fears. He suspected something last week, my wife had written just 5 days earlier, started asking questions about why I was going out so much. I told him I was worried about my sister's marriage and needed to be supportive. He bought it completely. My wife doesn't have a sister. She's an only child. The response from Tony's Pizza was chilling. Good. We're almost at the finish line. 8 more months of documented emotional abuse evidence, and we can trigger Phase 3. The restraining order will give us immediate control of the house and accounts. Emotional abuse? What emotional abuse? I'd never raised my voice to my wife in 4 years. I'd never controlled her money, her friendships, or her choices. I worked from home as a software developer specifically so I could be more available for household responsibilities. I cooked dinner most nights, did the grocery shopping, and had never once complained about her increasingly frequent nights out with friends. I scrolled up through months of messages, each one revealing another layer of an elaborate deception that made my stomach turn. Screenshots of our private text conversations, taken out of context and analyzed for anything that could be twisted to look controlling. Photos of our home, cataloging every expensive item we bought together. My gaming computer, her jewelry, the vintage motorcycle I'd restored in our garage. But the worst discoveries were yet to come. The hidden recording devices are working perfectly, she'd written in September. Got him talking about his ex-girlfriend again last night. When you edit out the context, it sounds like he's obsessed with her. Plus, I triggered another argument about money that should sound great in court. Hidden recording devices in our home, recording our most private conversations, our arguments, our intimate moments. Everything being captured, edited, and stored as evidence for a case I didn't even know was being built against me. I found photos of legal documents, already prepared and waiting for signatures, restraining order applications filled out with detailed allegations of psychological manipulation, financial control, and threatening behavior. None of it was true, but it was all documented with carefully edited recordings and strategically captured text messages. Tony's Pizza had sent detailed instructions on how to provoke arguments, how to make me look bad in social situations, and how to isolate me from friends and family members who might support me during a divorce proceeding. They'd mapped out a timeline stretching back to our second year of marriage, showing how they'd gradually been implementing a plan to destroy my reputation, my finances, and potentially my freedom. The financial planning was particularly sophisticated. They'd identified every asset we owned together, every account with my name on it, and every piece of property that could be claimed in a divorce. More disturbing, they'd calculated exactly how much money they could extract through alimony, property settlements, and what they called abuse recovery compensation. The beauty of this approach, Tony's Pizza had written, is that by the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. The restraining order will force him out of the house immediately, the abuse allegations will freeze his access to joint accounts, and he'll be too broke from legal fees to mount an effective defense. I sat there in the dark, holding the phone that contained the blueprint for my complete destruction, feeling something fundamental break inside my chest. The woman lying peacefully next to me, the one I'd fallen in love with in college, the one I'd proposed to on a beach in Hawaii, the one I'd built a life with, she'd been systematically planning to destroy me for almost 2 years. But here's what they didn't count on. I'm not just a software developer. I specialize in cybersecurity and digital forensics. I understand evidence preservation, data recovery, and most importantly, I understand how to build an airtight case when someone is trying to frame me. I spent the next 4 hours while my wife slept peacefully beside me, methodically documenting everything. Screenshots of every message, video recordings of the conversations on her phone, complete backups of the message threads, and most crucially, I traced the source of those hidden recording devices she'd mentioned. What I found made me physically sick. Our house was wired like a FBI surveillance operation. Tiny cameras in the living room, bedroom, kitchen, and even my home office. Audio recording devices hidden in picture frames, behind furniture, and inside electronics. Everything connected to a cloud storage account registered under a fake name, but paid for with a credit card that traced back to a company called Evidence Solutions LLC. A quick internet search revealed that Evidence Solutions LLC specialized in what they euphemistically called domestic surveillance for legal proceedings. In plain English, they helped people spy on their spouses to manufacture evidence for divorce cases. They had packages ranging from basic phone monitoring to complete home surveillance systems, all designed to help their clients maximize their divorce settlements through false allegations. The most damaging evidence came from the recordings themselves. Hours and hours of footage that was supposed to make me look abusive, but when viewed in complete context, clearly showed my wife manipulating situations, baiting me into arguments, and deliberately creating scenarios designed to make me appear threatening or unstable. In one particularly revealing video from 3 weeks earlier, I watched my wife spend 20 minutes practicing fake crying in our bathroom mirror before coming out to start an argument about money. She'd repeatedly provoked me until I'd finally raised my voice in frustration, then immediately started her rehearsed crying performance while looking directly at a hidden camera she'd positioned to capture her terrified reaction. In another recording, I could see her deliberately breaking her own belongings and then claiming I'd done it during a violent outburst that had never actually happened. She'd called the police to report the incident, but somehow the recording equipment had mysteriously malfunctioned during the alleged incident, leaving only her tearful account and the evidence of broken items. As dawn broke through our bedroom curtains, I realized I had enough evidence to not only defend myself, but to completely destroy their entire operation. They wanted to paint me as an abusive, controlling husband. I had proof of an elaborate conspiracy involving fraud, extortion, illegal surveillance, and what amounted to a professionally orchestrated character assassination. But I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. My brother Jake runs a private investigation firm that specializes in domestic cases. I'd helped him with some cybersecurity issues over the years, so I knew he'd understand the technical aspects of what I'd discovered. I sent him an encrypted file with all the evidence and asked him to meet me at a coffee shop across town, somewhere far from the surveillance network that had apparently been monitoring my every move for months. When I laid out everything I'd found, Jake's expression went from skepticism to shock to something that looked almost predatory. "This isn't just divorce fraud," he said, examining the evidence on my laptop. "This is conspiracy, wire fraud, illegal surveillance, and depending on how they've been using those recordings, potentially federal crimes under wiretapping statutes. We're not just going to protect you, we're going to destroy them." Over the next week, while maintaining the facade of my normal routine at home, Jake and I built a case that would make prosecutors salivate. We discovered that Tony's Pizza was actually a woman named Monica Chen who had used this exact same scheme on at least 6 other men over the past 3 years. She was the mastermind behind Evidence Solutions LLC, and she had a network of accomplices who helped implement these elaborate marriage destruction plans. The financial records were staggering. Monica's operation had extracted over $2-3 million from previous victims through fraudulent divorce settlements, false restraining orders, and manufactured abuse cases. 3 men had served jail time on fabricated charges, 2 had lost their children in custody battles based on falsified evidence, and 1 had attempted suicide after losing everything he'd worked for his entire life. Most damning of all, we found detailed communications between Monica and my wife discussing their post-divorce plans. They'd already selected a house in Portland where they planned to live together after liquidating all my assets. Monica had promised my wife a 60-40 split of everything they could steal from me, plus ongoing payments from her other active cases. "The best part," my wife had written, "is that he'll never see it coming. He still thinks I love him, still brings me coffee in bed every morning like the devoted husband. It's almost sad how clueless he is." Monica's response was even more chilling. "They always think their wives love them right up until the moment we destroy their lives. That's what makes this business so profitable. Men are pathetically trusting." Reading those messages, I felt the last remnants of grief for my marriage evaporate. This wasn't a woman who'd fallen out of love with me or made a mistake in a moment of weakness. This was a predator who targeted me specifically because I was trusting, financially stable, and unlikely to fight back against a system designed to favor women in domestic disputes. But they'd picked the wrong target. The confrontation happened on a Friday evening. My wife had been particularly affectionate all week, probably thinking they were getting close to triggering phase 3 of their plan. She made my favorite dinner, wore the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, and even suggested we watch a movie together, something she'd been too busy for in months. "You seem happier lately," she said, curling up next to me on the couch. "More relaxed. I like seeing you like this." If only she knew what I'd been planning all week. "I've been thinking about trust," I said, which was technically true, about honesty and what marriage really means. She smiled and kissed my cheek. "I love how thoughtful you are. It's one of the things that made me fall for you." The performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen the messages, hadn't watched the recordings, hadn't traced the money trail leading to Monica Chen's fraud operation, I might have believed this moment was genuine. "Speaking of trust," I continued, pulling out the manila envelope I'd been hiding under the coffee table, "I have something important to show you." Her face changed instantly when she saw the printed screenshots of her messages with Monica. The color drained from her cheeks and her hand instinctively moved to her phone, as if she could somehow undo what I'd already discovered and documented. "I can explain," she whispered, but we both knew there was no explanation that could make this acceptable. "Can you?" I asked, pulling out more documents. "Can you explain the hidden cameras, the fake abuse evidence, the conspiracy to frame me for crimes I never committed, the house in Portland you and Monica picked out?" With each revelation, she seemed to physically shrink into the couch. The confident, manipulative woman from the text messages had vanished, replaced by someone who looked genuinely terrified of the consequences she was about to face. "How long have you known?" she asked in a voice barely above a whisper. 6 days. Long enough to document everything. Long enough to build a case that will put both you and Monica in federal prison. She started crying then, but I'd watched her practice this exact performance on her own hidden cameras. I knew how easily she could manufacture tears, how perfectly she could control her emotional displays. Please, she sobbed, I never meant for it to go this far. Monica convinced me that you were psychologically abusive, that I needed to protect myself. I thought we'd just get divorced and I'd take half of everything. Even in her supposed confession, she was still lying. I'd seen the messages where she'd enthusiastically suggested adding criminal charges to really teach him a lesson and discussed how much money they could extract through extended legal proceedings. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up and walking to the window that overlooked our backyard. The same yard where I'd proposed to her 3 years earlier, under the oak tree we'd planted together on our first anniversary. You're going to pack a bag and leave this house tonight. You're going to stay away from me, away from our mutual friends, and away from any property with my name on it. Or what? I turned back to face her, and she must have seen something in my expression that scared her, because she stopped crying immediately and just stared at me with wide eyes. Or I release everything to the FBI, the media, and every social media platform I can find. Every message, every recording, every detail of your 2-year plan to destroy an innocent man's life. You'll be famous, but not the way you wanted. She stared at me for a long moment, probably calculating whether she could salvage any part of her scheme or manipulate her way out of the consequences. But we both knew it was over. What about Monica? She asked quietly. Monica gets her own special delivery tomorrow morning, along with the FBI, the IRS, and the attorneys representing her previous 6 victims who are planning a class action lawsuit. 6 victims? Oh, did she not mention that you're part of a serial operation? That she's done this exact same thing to 6 other families? Yeah, I found all of them. They're very interested in talking to investigators about Evidence Solutions LLC. My wife packed 2 suitcases in complete silence while I watched. As she headed for the door with her bags, she turned back one last time. I did love you, she said. In the beginning, before Monica got involved, I really did love you. No, I replied calmly. You loved what I represented. You loved having someone who trusted you completely. Someone who worked hard to provide a comfortable life. Someone who would never suspect that you were capable of this level of betrayal. You never loved me. You loved how useful I was. After she left, I sat in the silence of the house that was finally, truly mine again. All the hidden cameras had been removed and turned over to law enforcement as evidence. The woman who'd shared my bed while planning my destruction was gone. The elaborate conspiracy that had consumed 2 years of my life was about to unravel faster than they'd built it. But the night wasn't over yet. At exactly midnight, coordinated raids hit Evidence Solutions LLC, Monica Chen's home address, and the Portland house where my wife had gone to wait out what she thought would be a temporary setback. Federal agents armed with warrants seized computers, financial records, surveillance equipment, and communications that detailed the full scope of their operation. Monica tried to run, but it's remarkably difficult to disappear when federal law enforcement agencies are looking for you. They found her at a private airport trying to board a chartered flight to Costa Rica with 3 suitcases full of cash and financial documents related to her other active cases. My wife was arrested at the Portland house along with 2 other women who turned out to be Monica's accomplices in different ongoing schemes. The house itself was purchased with money stolen from previous victims, and it was loaded with evidence of multiple simultaneous fraud operations targeting unsuspecting husbands across 3 states. The investigation that followed was massive. Evidence Solutions LLC was just the tip of an iceberg involving dozens of people in a sophisticated network designed to destroy marriages for profit. They had lawyers who specialized in expedited restraining orders, private investigators who planted evidence, and even social workers who could be bribed to support false allegations in custody disputes. The trial became a media sensation. A seemingly perfect marriage destroyed by what prosecutors called the most sophisticated domestic fraud operation in federal law enforcement history. The evidence was so overwhelming and well documented that both my wife and Monica pled guilty rather than face a jury trial that would have resulted in even longer sentences. My wife received 8 years in federal prison for conspiracy, fraud, and violation of federal wiretapping laws. Monica got 15 years as the ringleader, plus forfeiture of all assets purchased with money stolen from victims. The other accomplices received sentences ranging from 3 to 10 years, depending on their level of involvement. But the most satisfying part wasn't the prison sentences. It was watching their entire operation collapse as more victims came forward. By the time the investigation was complete, authorities had identified 23 men who'd been targeted by Monica's network. Dozens of fraudulent restraining orders were overturned, falsified abuse allegations were exposed, and several men who'd been wrongfully convicted were released from prison. The financial recovery was staggering. Over $7 million in stolen assets were recovered and returned to victims. 3 houses, including the Portland property where my wife was arrested, were sold to compensate people who'd lost their homes to fraudulent divorce proceedings. I got my life back, but more importantly, I got closure. The marriage I'd mourned, the love I thought I'd lost, none of it had ever been real. The woman I'd fallen in love with in college was just a character my wife had played while setting up her long con. Understanding that freed me from any guilt or regret about how things ended. 6 months after the trial, I sold our house. Too many bad memories, too many hidden cameras, too many lies told in rooms I'd once considered sacred. I bought a smaller place in a different city, somewhere I could start fresh without the ghosts of a fake marriage haunting every corner. I also started dating again, which surprised everyone, including myself. I thought the betrayal would make me too paranoid, too damaged to trust anyone new. But the opposite turned out to be true. Having survived the most sophisticated relationship scam I could imagine, having seen manipulation at its most professional level, I actually felt more confident in my ability to spot red flags and trust my instincts. Her name is Emma, and she's everything my ex-wife pretended to be. Where my ex-wife was calculated and manipulative, Emma is genuine and spontaneous. Where my ex-wife kept secrets and built elaborate lies, Emma is almost aggressively honest about everything, even when it's unflattering. Where my ex-wife saw our relationship as a business opportunity, Emma sees it as a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine affection. "You're very observant," Emma told me on our 4th date. "Sometimes I feel like you're analyzing everything I say and do." "I learned the hard way that people aren't always who they seem to be," I explained. "Good," she replied with a smile. "That means you'll notice that I actually am who I seem to be. I'm not playing any games or hiding any agendas. This is just me." She was right. After 8 months of dating, she's exactly the person she appeared to be on day one. Successful in her own career as a veterinarian, genuinely kind to everyone she meets, completely transparent about her past relationships, and utterly uninterested in playing emotional games or manipulating situations for personal gain. We moved in together last month, and for the first time in years, I wake up each morning genuinely excited about the day ahead. No hidden cameras, no secret messages, no elaborate schemes designed to destroy my life. Just 2 people who chose each other honestly and work every day to deserve that choice. My ex-wife writes to me sometimes from federal prison. Long letters full of apologies and explanations, trying to rewrite history to make herself look like a victim of Monica's manipulation, rather than an eager participant in destroying innocent people's lives. She claims she developed genuine feelings for me over the years, and regrets everything that happened. I don't read the letters anymore. My lawyer handles all communication and files everything away in case she tries anything when she gets out in 7 years. You can't love someone while actively planning their destruction, and you can't build a real relationship on a foundation of lies and manipulation. Monica, I'm told, is not adjusting well to federal prison. Apparently, inmates don't appreciate people who made their living destroying families and putting innocent men in jail. She's been in protective custody multiple times and has already served more time in solitary confinement than some people serve for their entire sentences. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not trying to work things out, if I wish I'd confronted my wife before building the case against her. The answer is simple. You can't work things out with someone who was never really there in the first place. You can't save a marriage that was actually just an elaborate crime scene. What happened to me wasn't a marriage falling apart due to growing differences or fading love. It wasn't two people making mistakes or struggling with communication. It was a professional predator executing a sophisticated plan to systematically destroy someone who'd made the mistake of trusting her, and the only appropriate response was to defend myself with everything I had. The best revenge, they say, is living well. But sometimes the best revenge is also justice served, predators behind bars, and future victims protected from the same fate. I'm living well now, better than I have in years. I have a woman who loves me for who I actually am, not for what she can extract from me. I have a career I'm passionate about, friends who know the real story and respect how I handled the situation, and most importantly, I have the knowledge that I'm stronger and smarter than I ever imagined. That night when I found my wife's phone buzzing with messages from Tony's Pizza, I thought my world was ending. I thought I was discovering a simple affair that would require a painful but straightforward divorce. I had no idea I was actually uncovering a criminal conspiracy that could have destroyed not just my marriage, but my freedom, my reputation, and my entire future. But discovering the truth, as devastating as it was, turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me. It showed me what real love isn't, what genuine partnership looks like in contrast to elaborate manipulation, and most importantly, it taught me that I'm capable of protecting myself even when the people closest to me are actively working to destroy me. If you've made it this far, you might be wondering what warning signs you should watch for in your own relationship. The truth is, most betrayals aren't as elaborate as Monica's professional fraud operation, but the fundamental patterns are often similar. Secretive behavior around phones and computers, sudden changes in routine without reasonable explanations, defensiveness when asked simple questions about whereabouts or activities, and that persistent gut feeling that something important is being hidden from you. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything if you start to suspect deception. Don't ignore red flags because you want to believe the best about someone you love. And remember that sometimes the person sleeping next to you isn't who you think they are, but that doesn't mean you should stop believing in love altogether. Real love exists, and it's actually pretty easy to recognize once you know what to look for. It's honest instead of secretive, supportive instead of manipulative, and built on truth instead of elaborate performances. It doesn't require surveillance equipment or hidden agendas or carefully planned deceptions. The woman who destroyed my marriage taught me what love isn't. The woman who's rebuilding my life is teaching me what love actually is. And understanding that difference has made all the difference in the world. Emma and I are talking about marriage now, which seems ironic given everything I've been through. But this time, I know what I'm looking for. I know what genuine love feels like compared to professional manipulation. I know the difference between someone who wants to build a life with you and someone who wants to steal the life you've already built. The text message that I thought would end my world at 3:17 a.m. actually saved it. Sometimes the worst moments of your life turn out to be the best things that ever happened to you. You just don't know it until much later, when you're finally living the life you were meant to have all along. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more real-life tales of love, betrayal, and justice. Trust me, the next one will absolutely blow your mind.